to life. And when you get to understand them and when you get to embrace them, they give you an advantage in the short that you have at life and in the short that you have at relationship. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just take you through this lesson that I'm calling What Happy Singles Know and What They Must Continue Knowing after they are married. Why am I saying that? Because there's a lot of narrative out there about why marriages are not working, why marriages are failing. And I know it's very possible to focus so much on what is not working, and we fail to give attention to what it takes for relationships and marriages to work. I'm going to use Matthew 7 as my springboard, even as I get to this very short conversation with us on what happy singles know and what they must keep knowing after they are married. Now, the first thing that I want to mention to you is that building a marriage or building your singlehood is like building a house. When you're building a house, there is one element of the house that you cannot afford to compromise on. You cannot afford to joke with it. You cannot afford to go to maandamano when you should be dealing with this area. And it's the first thing that I want to talk to you about, and it is the power of foundations. Now, here is something that I want you to realize. Foundations are not only built during your singlehood, they continue to be reinforced even after you're married. Because there are people who build very good foundations when they are single, and then when they get married, they begin to lapse. They begin to casualize the very things that are the ones that made them be able to get into marriage in the first place. So, number one thing that I want to talk to us about is the power of foundations. Now, these four things are important in your foundations as a single. They will determine your happiness. They will determine how well you enjoy your life. And even when you get married, you must continue working on this area. Number one thing, which I call a very strong foundation, is that you must have what I call very high self-awareness. You must know yourself. You must know what is great about you. You must know what you need to grow that is weak in your life. You must know the wounds that you have that you need to address. You must know which areas that are gaps in your life that can create holes for you in marriage. And you begin to address the sense of self-awareness. Now, this is why being spiritual is important. When you are spiritual, there is something about the Holy Spirit being in your life and the Word of God that continues showing you areas where you're going to continue, you need to continue growing. Now, there's something I want you to understand as a single. You will never be happy in both singlehood or in marriage until you commit to personal growth. I like something John Maxwell says. John Maxwell says that growth is happiness. The moment you commit to growing, even when you get married and you continue growing after you get married, you will find that your gloomy days are lesser than your happy days. Why? When you grow, when you develop yourself, when you become better, when you become like Christ, when you become more of the person that God created you to be, both in your singlehood and in your marriage, your foundation becomes strong. Because guess what? The foundation of everything you will ever do in life is you. Guess what? Not just marriage. Even if you were to start a business today, the foundation of that business is you. So if you don't grow and become a better person, become a greater person, become a more solidified person on the inside, you will never be happy. And sometimes we think, and somehow I think society has succeeded in convincing us to believe that happiness is something on the outside, that you need this particular kind of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or when you get married and when you get a baby is when you're going to be happy. But I want you to realize that foundation number one is the foundation of self-awareness and growth. If you get married and you don't grow, you will be unhappy. If you get children and you don't grow, you will be unhappy. Your growth and your development is the foundation for your joy and your ability to bring value in a relationship. That's foundation number one. Remember, we are saying that if you don't do these things, you will never be happy as a single. You will never be happy as a married person. So number one, focus on growth, focus on developing yourself, focus on self-awareness. Know yourself, love yourself, celebrate yourself, discover who you are in God, and you will realize that the more self-aware you become, the more you are able to amplify the quality of joy you enjoy as a single and as a married person when you get that opportunity to get married. And by the way, the more you grow, the more even the people that will fit into your world when you begin navigating around relationships will be people who are also growing. You know why? When you grow, you carry a certain aura or a certain atmosphere around you that makes it very difficult for jokers to want to be around you. So it's not only a source of your joy, but it is also a source of securing the environment around you so that you only bring the right people that are supposed to be on board. Number two thing that is foundational to your journey of being a healthy single and a happy person when you get married is not only must you develop high self-awareness, number two, you must develop very high self-discipline. Now, I say these things and sometimes they look like they're normal, but you would be amazed at how many people are unhappy as singles and they're unhappy as marriage because they are loose on themselves. Have you ever realized that the more you master new areas of discipline in your life, if there was a bad habit that was controlling you and now you are able to rise above it, you're able to conquer it, there is a sense in which your confidence, your self-esteem goes to a higher level. You know why? Discipline is not a creator of pain. Discipline is an experience of temporary pain that creates long-term joy. Now, guess what? People who are not disciplined as singles will think that being married will make them happy. And then they'll realize that when you get married, you need discipline to be married. And that discipline can best be built when you're single. Sometimes when you're married, there is too much drama around you for you to even focus on building discipline. But if you can begin that journey now and you begin building strong fortresses of discipline around your life, you will find, number one, your life is going to be happier because when you're disciplined, you achieve more. When you achieve more, it activates your joy. When you're disciplined, you are able to cover more ground in terms of progress in your personal life. And what does that do to your soul? It activates the well of joy. Now, you will find that people who are not disciplined as singles and they are not disciplined when they get married, they never live to enjoy life. Life was designed in such a way that you only experience joy to the extent that you submit to the demands of discipline. Disciplining your mind, disciplining your appetites, disciplining what you watch, what you listen to. Everything around you must be shaped by the molding pot of discipline if you're going to enjoy your life as a single person and if you're going to enjoy your life as a married person. Now, if you talk to any married person, they will tell you that the more you grow in discipline, the more you are not only able to enjoy your life, but you're also able to enjoy your relationships, because discipline is at the heart of the cycle of joy that God wants us to have. And by the way, there is a very big difference between comfort and joy. Yeah. Joy is not comfort, and comfort is not joy. Joy is the ability to have an inner reservoir of fulfillment, even when the environment around you is not very friendly. So, what am I saying? Number one, grow in self-awareness. Number two, grow in self-discipline. We are talking about keys and wisdom that will help you to both enjoy your singlehood and your marriage. And I am saying, if you don't build these things when you're single, then even when you get married, it is going to be a very tall order for you to be able to enjoy your life. Number three thing that you need to do for you to be able to enjoy your singlehood and to be able to enjoy relationships and marriage when you get there is that you must build what I call high intentionality. You can no longer live your life by emotions. You can no longer live your lives by the flames of the moment. You've got to rise up and decide, I want to be intentional about my life. I want to build certain rhythms. I want to build certain rituals. I want to build certain patterns in my life that produce the life that I want. Because the life that you want is produced by intentionality. It is not wished into. It is not something that you stumble into. It is something you design by daily intentionality. And by the way, if you're not intentional as a single, you are sabotaging your life and you are creating an enabling environment for you to fail miserably when you get into a relationship. People who are highly intentional when they are single not only unlock the well of joy, but they also position themselves to be able to enjoy their marriages when they get married. And I want to ask you a question. Which area of your life right now is loose? Which area of your life right now is lacking where intentionality is concerned? Are you a slave of pizza? You go every weekend, you cool a pizza, and then you ask yourself why your horizontal length is increasing every day and you don't like yourself. It is because you're not intentional. Are you intentional about growing and understanding relationships, or are you waiting for marriage to be the alarm clock that will wake you up to begin learning? If you're not learning about how to have good relationships, how to have great experiences in your interaction with people right now as you're single, your lack of intentionality will not only rob you of joy today, but it will also create regrets in your tomorrow. Singles that are happy are self-aware, they are self-disciplined, and they are highly intentional about their lives. They are intentional about what they consume physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Intentionality must be the guiding principle of your life if you want to enjoy your singlehood and if you want to enjoy the life that is waiting for you on the other side of a covenant of marriage. So I've talked about self-awareness. You've got to know yourself. You've got to know what is unique about you. You've got to know what differentiates you from everybody else. If you don't discover your uniqueness, you will never walk in the joy that is attached to the awareness of that uniqueness. If you don't realize what is different about you, you will never know what you bring to the world that makes you valuable. And that will make you miserable, that will make you frustrated, and that will cause you to miss out on the potential of joy that is available for you in your singlehood and in your marriage. So I've talked about self-awareness. I've talked about self-discipline. I've talked about high intentionality. Number four, these are things that will give you joy when you're single and also when you're married. There's what I call high authenticity, right? When you know the power of being real, when you don't live your life trying to impress and to please others, when you don't live your life trying to condone hypocrisy, living a lie, living for social media. By the way, the less you live for social media, the higher your levels of joy will be in both your singlehood and in your marriage. You know why? A lot of what is happening in social media is just one big fat lie. And somebody said it will all be over when the fat lady sings, right? Because a lot of people, the only thing they live for is getting likes and follows on TikTok, on Instagram, and wherever. And they forget that life is about authenticity. It is not about image. It is not about trying to impress others. It is about embracing your uniqueness, your authenticity, and your realness, and deciding, I will live my life based on truth. I may not be able to afford to go to Dubai for a holiday because that is the preferred destination for most people. Most people think that going to Dubai is what makes you happy. No, embracing the moment and embracing your authenticity is what will cause you to unlock your joy and your fulfillment as a single person. And even when you get married, people who fake it when they are single continue faking it when they are married, and they continue creating cycles of sadness and frustration because they are living for a mirage. They are living for a facade, and they don't understand the power of authenticity. When I understood the power of authenticity, it liberated me to enjoy my life in whatever season that I'm in. When you are authentic, you don't wait for a season to be joyful. Every season finds you joyful and leaves you joyful because your joy is not attached to the season, it is attached to your identity. And your identity is knowing who you are in God, celebrating what God has made available for you, and purposing to be the best version of the person that God created you to be. That is what is called being authentic. So, self-awareness, self-discipline, high intentionality, and we are talking about solid authenticity. These are things that must stay with you in your singlehood and in your marriage. And if they don't stay with you, then joy will be a very far-fetched dream for you. Number 5 thing that will help you to be able to enjoy your singlehood and to enjoy your marriage is not only those 4 things that I've talked about, but there's a 5th one that I want to tell you that you rarely hear about. And this I learned from my father. I learned this from my dad, who passed on some 10 years ago. My dad taught me about integrity. Can you be trusted? I remember when we were growing up, one of the lessons that my dad kept drilling upon us is that you must value your integrity. You must value your conscience. You must value the reality of living a life that is based on truth and not a life that is lived on the platform of compromise. Let me tell you, compromise will complicate your life. Compromise will rob you of the ability to have joy because your joy is attached to the health of your conscience. And the health of your conscience can only be preserved by your commitment to walk in integrity. Are you a single that has integrity? Or are you the kind of single that has a reputation of having a parade of broken hearts behind you because of the lack of integrity that you have? Do you walk in integrity where your purity is concerned? Do you walk in integrity where your finances are concerned? Do you walk in integrity? Which area of your life is lacking integrity? Wherever there is an integrity fracture, there will be a leak of joy. And when joy leaks, then you know you have compromised the quality of your life as a single person and as a married person. Live with nothing to hide and hide nothing, and you will enjoy your life in an incredible way. So 5 things that you need to hold on to your singlehood in a way that will cause you to be joyful and to be able to enter marriage with a sense of value and a sense of purpose and a sense of significance. What are those 5 things that I talked about? Self-awareness, number one. You must know yourself. You must know what is unique about you. You must know what makes you different from others. Number two, I've talked about self-discipline, and these are foundations, right? These are foundations. You must be able to master yourself. Now, let me say something here that I keep telling single people. If you don't master yourself in your singlehood, you will create disasters in your marriage. Because when you get into marriage, it will expose whether you had mastered yourself in your singlehood or whether you are living a loose and a callous life. You will either be a blessing waiting to happen or a disaster waiting to happen by how you master yourself. Number three, we've talked about what? High intentionality. Be intentional about everything. When you're single, be intentional about every expenditure. And these are things that I wish I had learned earlier, because you realize when you're single, there are cycles and seasons of possibilities that are there if you can live with intentionality that will be aborted if you're not intentional, right? There are certain investments you can make. There are certain steps you can take in your life that can only be attained by a high sense of intentionality. And guess what? When you're intentional in your singlehood, it becomes very easy to be intentional in marriage. And intimacy in marriage will always reflect the intentionality you cultivated when you were single. Because intimacy is not sex. Intimacy is the ability to enjoy a unique relationship that has an unusual sense of oneness. And how do you create that? Intentionality. And then we've talked about high authenticity. We've talked about just learn to be real. Don't live your life faking it. Don't live your life trying to become something you're not. Find out who God created you to be and be the best version of that. High authenticity. And lastly, we've talked about high integrity. Who are you when nobody is watching? If you do not have integrity, guess what? The first thing that will destroy you, both in your singlehood and in your marriage, is that people will realize that you cannot be trusted. And somebody who cannot be trusted ends up being avoided. Why? Integrity is the currency for credibility in your singlehood and in your marriage. Now, can you imagine with me for a moment, if you met somebody that had those 5 qualities and they proposed to you, if you are a lady or you are a gentleman and you met that kind of a person, you met somebody who has self-awareness, you met somebody who has high self-discipline, you met somebody who has high intentionality, you met somebody who had high authenticity and high integrity. Guess what? I am sure if they proposed to you, you would be the first one to raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm ready. In fact, we are behind on our wedding plans. You know why? That kind of a person is a person that will make it very easy for you to be able to sustain a quality relationship, because that is the software of a quality relationship. Self-awareness, self-discipline. Number 3, we've talked about what? I want somebody to write it on the chat so that I can see whether you are listening, right? Anybody wants to try? Okay. So we've talked about high self-awareness. We've talked about high self-discipline. We've talked about high intentionality. We've talked about high authenticity. And lastly, we've talked about high integrity. Now, those things are the foundation that will help you to go anywhere you need to go in your relationship and in your singlehood. Whether you're talking about growing financially, whether you're talking about growing professionally, whether you're talking about growing in your relationships, those 5 things will give you the ability to design the life that you want. And remember, we have talked about something very important. We have said nobody stumbles into a high quality life. A high quality life is designed by your intentionality. Now, that you must develop in your singlehood, and you must be able to build on it even after you get married. Because self-awareness is not an event, it is a process of discovering yourself. Did you know that if you were to live for 200 years, you would never get to the peak of your self-awareness? Because self-awareness is a continuous journey of knowing yourself and becoming the best version of yourself. Now, I want to try and give some closing remarks so that, again, I don't give this for too long. I don't give you a very long lecture here. When you lack those 5 things, what happens to you? There are 5 things that happen to you, and I'm going to throw this to you very quickly. When you have self-awareness, when you have self-discipline, when you have intentionality, authenticity, and integrity, you become what I call a high-value single. Now, guess what? You will only become in your marriage what you were in your singlehood. If you are a low-quality single, guess what happens when you get married? You only become a married person that is a low value married person. So marriage is a magnifying glass. It amplifies who you are. It brings out even the very things that you are trying to hide that are areas of growth for you. So let me tell you 4 things that happen when you